Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Tuesday, the 31st of July, 2012. I'm Tony Paniagua. Pima County Supervisor Ray Carroll was first elected to his present position in 1998, and since then he has been re-elected 3 times without opposition. 2012 is different, however, since the Republican is facing a challenger in the primary election next month. As part of Your Vote 2012, Jim Ninsel has this forum with both Republicans.
On August 28th, Republican voters in Pima County's District 4 will decide whether to keep Pima County Supervisor Ray Carroll or replace him with his GOP challenger, Sean Collins. Joining me in the studio tonight to talk about the issues in the race are both candidates. Republican Ray Carroll has represented the district since 1997. Mr. Carroll has lived in Pima County since 1984 and is married and has 3 children. He is a full-time Pima County Supervisor. Sean Collins is an Air Force veteran who has lived in Tucson since 1999. Since retiring from the military, Mr. Collins has worked for a local defense contractor and owns a Dairy Queen in Vail with his wife, Tracy. The couple have 4 children. Pima County's District 4 includes Tucson's east side, the Tanque Verde Valley, the Rincon Valley, and Green Valley. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Mr. Collins, we'll start with you. You've said during this campaign that you feel as though Supervisor Carroll has leaned too far to the left, that he's a rhino, a Republican in name only, has not been a loyal Republican. I'd like to give you a minute to talk about that.
Sure, I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you. As you know, my opponent is a 15-year incumbent. In my opinion, he's been here too long. He's a little too comfortable in his chair. I think it's time for a change. He claims he's a fiscal conservative, yet because he votes because he votes against a Democratic budget, and he did not vote for a county sales tax. Those are things that I don't think any fiscal conservative would do. What he doesn't tell you is about his record of consistently voting with the Democratic majority. He's on spending our tax dollars and everything from water in the desert for illegals to cross the desert to suing job creators like Rosemont and Raytheon. County priorities like road maintenance are nowhere to be seen, and we have millions of dollars that are actually unaccounted for. I'm also disappointed with my opponent's lack of conservative values. Recently, you may have seen a YouTube video that's out there. It's rather popular, and in it, he showcases his unprofessionalism with some derogatory comments about the local business community. And his 15 years has been more than enough time to fix what's happening in this community. And I'm disappointed, and I really think that we will be better off, certainly, or we can ask, would be better off today than we were 15 years ago when he was appointed by Raul Grijalva.
Mr. Carroll, I'd like to give you a minute to respond.
Thanks very much, Jim. Jim, I don't think a conservative would doubt my credentials in that category. I've been awarded the Hero of the Taxpayer Award by the Arizona Federation of Taxpayers for the reason that they keep scorecards, Jim. And out of the hundreds of elected officials across the state, I had the best report card. Another thing, conservatives in the Republican Party sought to make me the Republican of the Year. I won an award, a chairman's award, just a few years ago. And lastly, conservatives that know me know that fiscal conservatism is not something I take lightly. Standing up against a sales tax with all the pressure that was put on me, a half-cent sales tax that would have been enacted would have taken $50 million a year out of taxpayers and business pockets, therefore saving almost over the years now $600 million plus hundreds of jobs. I think conservative values find a big tent. I'm a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, fiscal conservative that has great credentials in our party and have represented the values of the Republican Party and platform for all 15 years. And as far as being appointed by Raul Grijalva, I can say that Frank Antonori was appointed to the Senate by the County Board of Supervisors. Does that make him not a conservative?
All right. I'd like to take a half a minute to respond to what Mr. Carroll has said here.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Carroll came here actually to this area as a Democrat, then later became a Republican. After that, he decided to go back and become a Democrat. He later became a Republican before he was recruited and appointed by Raul Grijalva. We don't share the same values. In fact, as a fiscal conservative, I believe that there are other things you can do as a minority member than just sort of, well, I say this, cower in the corner, meaning there are things that you need to be able to say. You need to be able to get out there and make your point known, despite the fact that you're in the minority.
Mr. Carroll, a chance to respond.
Thank you, Jim. I can say that cowering in the corner is not in my nature, Jim. I've led the charge against fiscal irresponsibility and held the feet to the fire of the board majority, as well as keeping Mr. Huckleberry from that sales tax, as we spoke about earlier. But I will say over the 15 years I've been in office, I've led with conservative values and fiscal conservative credentials. And this district has certainly appreciated my efforts. I've been very welcomed, and I'm very delighted to continue. I'll serve the full 4 years of this next term, and I hope that I can have the votes of Republicans on early voting starts August 2nd, and Election Day is August 28th.
All right, let's get to one of the most contentious issues in this race, which I think is the Rosemont mine. Mr. Carroll, you've been criticized by your opponent for leading the opposition to the Rosemont mine. Talk a little bit, take a minute to discuss why it is you oppose the mine.
Well, sure, but let me first quote someone. He was a Democrat until he was older than I was. His name was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan one time said, "Trust but verify." Now, when new companies, if this new company, Rosemont Mine, would collaborate and would certainly compromise with the Board of Supervisors, they would have been a lot further in our approval process. But I will say this, if this election is a referendum about the expansion of mining in southern Arizona, I want to point to the credentials that I have. I've helped expand a ASARCO mine. I've also helped expand Freeport-McMoran. Both those mines are in Green Valley. Recently, I was the speaker at the 50th anniversary of the ASARCO Mission Complex. They don't allow you to be the keynote speaker at a luncheon to celebrate their 50th anniversary if you didn't help them with their expansion and collaborate and compromise with them along the way. I also say that if it's going to be about expanding mining, I think I should point to the 240 mining jobs that I just helped create by reopening the Oracle Ridge mine in the Catalina Mountains. It's also in District 4. So as you can tell, I have 3 major mines in District 4 that I work with, collaborate with, and help through the process of government rules and regulations, and sometimes help them get them out of a jam if I can and when I can.
And Mr. Collins, you're a supporter of the Rosemont mine. You think it's important to the community?
I do. I'd first like to say, with all due respect, Ray, you're no Ronald Reagan. But first and foremost, Rosemont has the legal authority to open that mine. That mine's going to conduct business and employ lots of people, and we really need that at this time. Rosemont is certainly going to support a lot of economic activity, and we need that economic activity, and we shouldn't even think about turning that away. Just the other day, in fact, on the radio, my opponent said that even if Rosemont used cap water directly, pumped 0 groundwater, that would just be one of his many compromises. Essentially, he's saying there's no way Rosemont would go in. He would not make a compromise. In fact, I don't think he wants compromise. I think he wants capitulation. He's drawn a line in the sand that, frankly, can never be met. When does it stop? In fact, here's the thing. The Board of Supervisors does not have a say in whether or not the mine can go in or not. The Board of Supervisors can monitor the air quality, but they do not have a say, and they don't have a dog in the fight. That belongs to state and federal entities, actually. As a small business owner, I understand. I've experienced firsthand the troubles, the difficulty in opening up a business. And, certainly those are things that we need to look at any business. We need to have a process that's easier for small business, for entrepreneurs, as well as large business to come to this town and flourish. And as a county supervisor, I'll work to change that. And we certainly won't be as critical of our job creators, especially someone like Rosemont, who has gone through all of the hurdles that they have to make sure that they have got the latest, greatest technology, that we're not going to be concerned about our air or our water. I have children. So one of the first things we did was we went and took the tour and checked it out, and we've continually done research. I would suggest that my opponent take the tour of Rosemont. I know he took it about 5 years ago. Things have changed since then. Rosemont's going to bring an awful lot of economic activity, as I said, to this area, and I think it's going to be very, very good for Tucson.
Okay, I want to move on because we've covered the Rosemont thing.
I would just like to respond and say the fight's about our drinking water, Jim. Cap water to the mine site would be as easy as 1, 2, 3 for Rosemont. It's about the money to pipe that cap water there, and it's about the unreliability of the resource. People in southern Arizona cannot drink sand. We need potable drinking water. I've been fighting for my constituents over this issue. It's about the water, Jim. It's about not only going to the mine, it's about the waters that come off that mine.
The waters that come from that mine, or actually I would dispute that. The waters that come from that mine are going to be treated much as you treat sewage. Oftentimes we drink water that has originated and gone through a sewage plant. There are some facts out there that my opponent distorts, and I would suggest that he research that a little further.
All right, let's move on to the question of county debt, because I know that's something that you've expressed a lot of concern about in your campaign, Mr. Collins. And much of the county's debt has come from bonding that the voters have approved over the years for open space or for roads or for parks, libraries, things of that nature. Was it a mistake for the voters to actually approve that debt, and was it a mistake for the County Board of Supervisors to give them the opportunity to approve that debt?
Oh, I don't think that it was a mistake. I think the voters will be done. It was presented. However, I believe that bonds, when they're presented, they should be presented with a timeline. One thing I want to mention is it's important. I don't want to forget this in here that we have the highest property taxes in the state. Our bond debt is greater than all the other counties in the state combined. That's important. That's for a reason. Look at Canoa Ranch in Green Valley as an example. I mean, it's become this taxpayer-funded pit, money pit. We have historical buildings there, and people aren't even allowed to enjoy those buildings. It's going to take a great deal of money just to maintain that property as well. Nothing's been done to Canoa Ranch in quite a while. In fact, recently, our county administrator said, well, we'll have $600,000 approved to one of the items they're going to do is build a bathroom there. And I think that when they do open it up, as the last that I understood, it would be open 2 days a week. It's something there that people can enjoy. It should be open on a regular basis for people to do that. And I think so we can get a little bit back for our bond money that we spent on there as well. I believe my opponent's not really been the fiscal conservative, as I mentioned, because he's not been transparent and accountable in talking about or enforcing the will of the people.
Okay, let me hold off there. And Mr. Carroll, your thoughts on whether the county has too much debt and whether or not we should have approved these bonds?
Well, of course, my dispute over debt has been in your newspaper, front page cover story, Dave Devine talking about Chuck Huckleberry and I's disagreement over the size of debt and the cost of debt. Of course, over the years, the voters have approved, for example, open space at nearly 70%. That was a bond for open space. I don't have the moral or legal means to stop that spending. But I will say Chuck Huckleberry and I, the Board of Supervisors and I, are quite opposed when it comes to how to manage our debt. I will also say that due to arbitrage and bond sales rules, there's phases that bonds go through. Canoa Ranch did get that last $600,000, and that got us right to this point. We're just signing a lease with a collaborative of the Chamber of Commerce in Green Valley and the University of Arizona to turn that into what it needs to be, an equestrian facility, an agriculture experimental range, as well as a history about that area. So it has come along. It does take a little while because this isn't just a slush fund. This is an important phased-in bond project that comes through time. I do believe it'll be a success eventually. Do I have problems with the debt? Do I think we're going to have to pay down debt before we ever go out for another bond package? Absolutely, Jim. We have too high a debt, and it's costing us too much money.
All right, and I'm sorry, but we're actually going to have to leave it there, but I thank you both for coming in here, and good luck to both of you on Election Day.
Thank you so much, Jim.
The summer rainy season is an exciting time for many residents in southern Arizona, and of course, our local ecosystems depend on this moisture. This year, we saw the monsoon arrive right on schedule, and so far, many parts of our region have been reporting record rainfalls. But will they last? Mark McLemore has an interview with a meteorologist.
And joining me to talk about this great seasonal weather, I've got JJ Brost from the National Weather Service in Tucson. And I'm going to assume, JJ, that this is a pretty exciting time for meteorologists.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people assume that Arizona has quiet weather, sunny and warm every day. But during the monsoon season, it's incredibly active. In fact, we get more lightning strikes per square mile than anywhere else in the country during this 3-month period. And we have a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings. Obviously, a lot of our flash flood warnings come out during this period. So it's a very active, very exciting time to be working weather in Arizona.
Well, tell us about this year's monsoon. It came in right on time, right on schedule. What were you expecting from the National Weather Service from it as those first few storms hit?
Oh, that's a great question. We actually, early on in the season, around mid-May, around mid-June, right as the monsoon was about to get started, we were anticipating an early start and maybe even a wetter July than normal. And that's exactly what panned out. So that was wonderful news. Obviously, a lot of people like the rain in July. So that has worked out really well. And right now, based on the Tucson Airport, which is the official observing station for the city of Tucson, we're sitting at about 200% of normal rainfall for this time in the monsoon. And even if you look around the entire state, there's a lot of areas that are above normal or even near normal. A few places have had a little bit drier years. Places like Douglas, for instance, are only about 30% of normal. But for the most part, the state of Arizona has really benefited from a lot of widespread rain this monsoon.
Well, everyone seems to remember the monsoon differently from year to year, and I guess that's because wherever you live, you may or may not have gotten as much rain as your neighbors. But it seems like we have been experiencing later starts. And this year, though, came right in on time. We've had this heavy rainfall. The question is it going to last?
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. The Climate Prediction Center, who's responsible for issuing the longer-term outlooks for the entire country, are actually suggesting that we have a 40% chance of being wetter than normal for the rest of August and even for the next 3 months. Usually they don't put that high a confidence on our area because, like you said, the monsoon is it's so random. You either, if you're in the right spot, you get a ton of rain, and if you're in the wrong spot, you don't get much. As an example, on Saturday, we had over an inch of rain at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Just 5 miles away at the official observing station at the airport, we had 0.05 of an inch. So it can be very difficult to predict a month or a season worth of rain. But it's sure looking like for the next month or two, we're going to be above normal, which is great.
And what are the key factors? And remember, there will be a lot of people, a lot of laymen listening to your answer now. What are the key factors that are helping to make this monsoon such a good one?
Well, first of all, moisture. We've had a ton of moisture in our atmosphere, sustained all the way through the end of June, through the entire month of July, and that should continue as it normally does. But really the big factor has been something called an inverted trough, which is a technical term for a low-pressure system. So just think of a nice low-pressure system, except for this one moves the opposite direction that most systems do. Most systems move from west to east. These are actually coming from the Gulf of Mexico or even the state of Texas, and they move west towards Arizona. And as they do, they provide more support for thunderstorms. So it's like a little bit of extra energy, a little bit of extra support. And when you have that combined with our abundant moisture, we get widespread heavy rains. And those have happened 3 or 4 times already this season. And based on the latest outlook, there's 2 or 3 more lined up to move into Arizona over the next week or week and a half. And that really didn't happen last year. Last year, we only had maybe 1 or 2 of these low-pressure systems and obviously had a drier year.
Well, I was going to ask you for a short-term forecast, and you sort of just gave us one there, so it looks good for the next week, week and a half. How much, or maybe I should say, how dependent are we really on monsoon rain to continue our lifestyle here in the desert?
Oh, well, we're fairly dependent, actually, especially if you get closer to the border. The city of Tucson, for instance, receives about 60, maybe 65% of our annual rainfall during the monsoon. If you go as far north as Phoenix, it's closer to 40 to 50%. So it's not as strong of an impact. But then if you go down towards, say, Nogales or even south of the border, they receive 80, 90, 95% of their annual rainfall during this 3 or 4 month period. So they're incredibly dependent. And we receive a lot of our rainfall during the winter as well, and especially things like our reservoirs that we need for increased moisture for the agricultural community. They get a lot of snow melt that fills up their reservoirs. So they're not as dependent, but certainly southern Arizona, we definitely need the monsoon rain.
Well, it always brightens everyone's spirits at the end of the summer to see it coming. So thanks for coming and telling us about this year's monsoon, JJ.
It's my pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
On the next History Detectives.
One guy emailed me saying that these patches are just unidentifiable.
Whoa. I want to know if that's a real Lincoln signature.
This does not make sense.
Oh my God.
They're coming downstairs when disaster strikes.
Do we have a piece of American history? Do we?
Tonight at 8 on PBS 6.
The Tucson Pima Arts Council has an annual event that recognizes individuals or groups that contribute to the art scene in Southern Arizona. The winners are seen as luminaries in the community and receive a Lumie Award. We are introducing the honorees to you right here on Arizona Illustrated, and tonight we continue these conversations with the winner in the Emerging Artist category. She is poet Amy Briseño. She co-hosts the Tucson Youth Poetry Slam, and she works with students of all ages from elementary to high school. Amy, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
So it's interesting. I was talking to you ahead of this interview, and your connection to poetry began because of an English class that you had to take in high school.
Yeah. I was in AP English my senior year, and my teacher at the time told us, I really needed the extra credit, and my teacher at the time told us he would give us 1 time the extra credit if we went to the slam, 2 times if we competed, and 3 times if we won. And so I went and I competed, and I didn't even make it to the second round.
And yet poetry has become a significant part of your life. What happened?
Definitely. I mean, just being on the mic, even the first time, whether you make it or not, it's exciting, and it's terrifying, but it's exciting, and it changes you. Either you completely fall in love with it, or it's just you become sort of indifferent to it. So I fell in love with it.
And so what is the Poetry Slam all about for people who may not have heard about this?
Well, it sort of puts a new spin on regular poetry, things that are classic, like Emily Dickinson, who I love, and Edgar Allan Poe. They were amazing poets, but none of them ever competed against each other. It was never like Poe versus Dickinson head to head, things like that. So it's just different. It's a new spin on poetry, on expression.
And how often does this organization meet, and where do the contestants come from?
The Tucson Youth Poetry Slam meets every 3rd Saturday of the month at Bentley's House of Tea and Coffee, or Coffee and Tea. I don't know. And the poets, most of them are from high school because it's a youth slam, so it's ages 18 and under. And we've had contestants from middle schools. My brother does it, and he's in elementary school. And so they just come from all kinds of different schools all over Tucson.
So you began this so-called career as a poet. 2 years ago, you were 17. You are now 19 years old. So what do you think about being nominated and then winning the Emerging Artist category in the Lumies?
It was a shock because I didn't expect it. My mom with me, she didn't expect it either because the other artists that were nominated, they've done so much, and they've gone to college. Some of them had degrees. One of them has done well-known pieces, sculptures in Phoenix and everything. And here, I'm a poet who's 19 from South Tucson. I haven't even been doing this 2 years, and I won. So it was just amazing. It was shocking.
So what do you hope to do? You're getting your education, and what's next in your life?
Right now I'm going to school for early childhood education, and I've taught workshops and things like that with poetry before, so I really hope to be able to integrate what I've learned with teaching poetry and being able to integrate it into my life, to be able to do that with kids that I teach, hopefully in my career as a teacher.
So you think it's really nice that the light was set off for you when it comes to poetry, and that could happen with lots of other students throughout many different schools?
Yeah, hopefully, because I mean, it's inspiring seeing how many schools this actually reaches from one event, and then one person that tells a friend, and then that friend that tells a friend. So it's exciting to see how it sparks, and then how many students are actually into it. So it would be so amazing to be able to spark that interest in so many in different schools, in different places.
So what would you tell teenagers who say poetry, that's boring, that's not for me. Obviously, you have a different take on that. What would you say to that person?
Well, obviously, they've never been to a poetry slam because it's exciting. It's a competition, so there are judges and there are rules and time limits and things like that. So it really sort of pumps up the excitement of hoping this is great enough. And it is, I would say, challenging because you're putting the best and worst of yourself into 3 minutes to be judged before 5 people you've never met before. So it's challenging and exciting.
Well, Amy Briseño, thank you very much for joining us and congratulations on winning the Lumie Award from the Tucson Pima Arts Council.
Thank you so much.
In tonight's video postcard from photographer and editor Eric Rodden, we take you to an early summer morning 5-kilometer run. It happened through the Green Valley Pecan Orchards and benefited the Green Vally-Sahaurita Community Food Bank.
Great. We always want to thank the Green Valley Pecan Company for letting us be out here. And today we got Rich Walden from the Green Valley Pecan Company here to say a couple words.
I want everybody just to remember, have a good time out there and enjoy it. And we'll see you before too long. Thanks a lot.
Go! Firefighters are over there cooking up pancakes for them. We're almost 11 and a half minutes in. It's kind of buzzing, kind of wet, so I doubt if anybody's fast, we'll be getting this good time.
Almost done. Go, go.
I will. Thank you.
You can get more news and information on our website, azpm.org. To comment on any story you saw tonight, click on it online and go to the bottom. We can also be reached via Facebook and Twitter. Coming up tomorrow night, despite our recent rainfalls, much of the country is facing a drought. We'll talk about drought preparedness and finding native foods in the desert. 2 local harvesters share their tips. I'm Tony Paniagua from all of us at Arizona Public Media. Have a great night.